You're listening to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Crawford. So, last week, Emerger Strategies launched the Fly Fishing Climate Alliance. And the main objective of the Climate Alliance is to go carbon neutral by 2030. So in this episode, I interview Fly Fishing Climate Alliance members Corinne Garrison Doctor from Rector Water, Tom Fernandez from Tailwater Lodge, Dave McCoy from Emerald Water Anglers, and Kyle Schaefer from Soulfly Outfitters. We discuss why each of them decided to join the Climate Alliance, how climate change is impacting our fisheries, and how sustainable business practices and going carbon neutral is solving the climate crisis so that we can save the planet, the fish, our businesses, and in the process, protect what we love. Hope you enjoy. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies, a sustainable business consultancy whose mission is to solve the climate crisis by helping your business go carbon neutral. To learn more, visit emergerstrategies.com. First and foremost, thank all of you for signing up for the Climate Alliance, and appreciate y'all taking some time to chat tonight.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
So I thought, since this is the Sustainable Angler, before we dive too deeply into climate change, maybe we should talk about why we love fishing and why we want to protect what we love. And I'll just sort of go around the room a little bit and we'll just get the conversation started there. So I'm going by who's on the top of my screen. So I'm going to start with Corinne and Garrison from Rector Water.
Bet. I think for everyone, the stereotypical response is always for the future of our planet, and we don't have kids, nor will we have kids, but we have so many friends who have children, and we really believe in passing on a better world than we have, like we love fishing, we love all those things. Those are really selfish pieces. And so we really believe in protecting what we love to recreate on, but then beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a, first off, selfless and admirable way to look at this is to be thinking outside of yourself. And, we all love to fish, and of course I want to catch fish today. I did not today. I missed a redfish opportunity today that will haunt my dreams tonight. But it's not just about fishing for today. It's about the future and just basic conservation principles of leaving something better than the way that you found it. And so Kyle from Soulfly Outfitters, I know that you're a guide up in Maine, and you guide in the Bahamas and do quite a bit of traveling elsewhere. But I'll ask you the same question. What is it that what is your why, I guess, for being a Climate Alliance member?
Yeah. So, for me, I think as, this is a commercial enterprise for me. I got into this for the love of fishing and for the sport of it. And that's how it all started for me. But now I make my living doing it. And so I feel like it is, 100% my duty to be paying attention to what's going on in the world, whether it's fisheries issues, which are certainly affected by climate change. Also, what's just happening in our planet. The Gulf of Maine is the water's warming at 99% faster than the rest of the world's oceans. So we're in a microcosm up here that is,
wow.
We're seeing change on a daily basis. We're seeing new fish coming into our system. So it's, to me, it just feels like my duty to, to be looking outside just as operating as a guide and try to be a better citizen of the world and our community. And this is just such a natural, wonderful way to make an impact, raise some awareness, and just spread the word. So, I feel strongly that I really, it's my duty to operate as best as I can and get involved in stuff like this. So really, really proud to be a part of this group for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, something you just said too about the oceans warming. I'm based in Charleston, South Carolina, and we certainly are already seeing that here. In fact, I've seen a bunch of pictures where people are starting to catch a lot of snook here. So we'll come back to that. But the change in migratory patterns is something that climate change is already affecting and impacting. So sounds like you're already seeing that up in Maine, but we'll chat a little bit more about that. So next I have Tom Fernandez, Tailwater Lodge. Just a little bit of background on Tom and I. We met each other through our MBA in Sustainable Business program. We were like, oddly, people got us confused because we were the two fly fishing dudes. They're like, "Oh, you're the one who fly fishes. Who's a psycho?" Because we always talked about that, like in discussions. And anyway, I had an opportunity to visit Tailwater Lodge outside of Syracuse, New York, this past fall and do some fishing. And we'll actually be hosting the first sustainable business workshop that Emerger Strategies is putting on at Tailwater Lodge this November. But shameless plug there. But Tom, I will kick it over to you and ask you the same question. Why is this so? Is climate change and protecting what you love so important to you?
Yeah, no, thanks again, Rick. It was interesting because I started off in sustainable business outside of fly fishing. So we build hotels and restaurants and different things around upstate New York. And we happened upon an area that could be the Tailwater Lodge. So it kind of was able to take my aspect of sustainable design, bring it towards my passion of fishing, and bring those two things together. With it's oddly taken over my entire life, except for my kids, which is the reason that I feel so strongly in this in this change and really making witness of what's happening and how we can actually make a difference. Same thing in upstate New York. We're seeing changes with brook trout population. We've done a ton of river restoration work at Tailwater just because the water keeps on getting warmer and warmer. There's many things that we need to do. I live in Skaneateles, New York, which is a little bit outside of Syracuse. We're seeing crazy algae blooms now. So, pretty much everywhere you look, there's something that needs, us to take a look at, and impact is needed everywhere. So, it's just what we need to survive on our own planet. So, yeah, that's what brings it all together.
Absolutely. And something that we'll get into, but Tom, some of not only Tailwater Lodge, but some of the hotels that they manage have got some incredible sustainability stories that are not only helping to solve climate change through energy efficiency and some other aspects that we'll dive into, but really, really interesting stuff. But so next we've got Dave McCoy from Emerald Water Anglers. And Dave and I got connected. I don't actually remember how. Maybe Brian Bennett connected us or something. And we wound up doing a podcast for the Sustainable Angler not too long ago. And Dave introduced me to Kyle. And this is just sort of how this whole thing is evolving. But Dave, same question. Let's kick it off. As a guide, as a shop owner, what is it about climate change that you're so passionate about, and why you want to protect what you love?
Man, it's it's a great question. I think I have all those same feelings that everybody else has expressed. And I feel like those are very organic feelings for a lot of people when they start to just peel back the layers of what it is that they're experiencing. And if they're paying close enough attention, like our sport demands, I think it's inevitable that people will start to see a lot of these changes, deteriorations, alterations in the places that they spend time fly fishing. I guess for me, the thing that has awestruck me, I'll leave it neutral as to whether it's better for worse at the moment, is the extraordinary amount of people in our industry with money, with abilities, capabilities for travel, for making decisions that are conscious of that simple fork in the road of, how do I buy this because it was made here, or do I buy that, or do I travel here because it's closer? All these little things that add to what are our carbon footprints. And I just, Rick, until you really started this emerger strategies thing, there just isn't anybody else in this industry really addressing these things. Everybody wants to address their local watershed, and that grassroots, activism is incredibly important. In fact, it's probably some of the most potent, but there's really not anybody specific to our sport that is grabbing the megaphone and blasting this and leading through example by, number one, what's going on, and number two, how we're effectively going to be able to hold the change within our grasp if we choose to. And so I guess, yep, I've got a daughter and I want to leave what I have currently opportunity wise and everything else to her and possibly her kids. Yep, I grew up in the outdoors, and it's why I do what I do, despite wanting to be a stockbroker when I was in college. Yep, I chose a profession that makes zero freaking money, and I do it completely out of the love and the inspiration that I can provide to people to hopefully walk that same path that I've had the opportunity to walk. And so that's really where I come at this from. I feel like being a catalyst for a larger change on a faster scale than what we're currently heading for.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And, it sounds like, to, I guess, somewhat summarize everyone's sentiments, but, at the end of the day, you protect what you love. And if you're in the fly fishing industry, we clearly love to fish. We love our lifestyle. We love the places that it takes us, the people that we meet, and to put that at risk, I think, is not acceptable, which is why we're doing what we're doing. And so just, I guess, make a statement about the Climate Alliance and what we're trying to do before we dive in deeper is just, we all recognize that climate change is the single greatest threat to fisheries on our planet amongst to humans. Yes. Not only save the fish, save the humans, save yourselves, save the mammals. But ultimately, we want to protect our planet. We want to protect the fish, and we want to protect our businesses so that we can continue to do what we love. And to Dave's point, to continue to hopefully provide that inspiration for others to get outside and really enjoy everything that nature has blessed us with and has provided us with. So I thought I would talk a little bit more, because we're talking about one of the obviously the big thing that we're doing. Well, actually, let me back up. So the whole Climate Alliance idea, just in case anyone was wondering, was I interviewed Alden Schindler, who's the VP of sustainability at Aspen Snowmass. And there were two books that I read, which I would encourage anyone listening to this to check out if you're interested in sustainability or sustainable business. One was Let My People Go Surfing by Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard. And the other was Getting Green Done, which Alden Schindler wrote. And it was all about his journey and trying to make Aspen Snowmass, the ski resort, more sustainable. And when I interviewed him, he had said, what's interesting, because he's involved with Protect Our Winters, that nonprofit that's primarily skiers and snowboarders and things that want to fight climate change and solve the climate crisis. And he was like, what's interesting is that fly fishing hasn't really done much of that yet. And the thing is that we could have a huge impact at absolutely zero cost by just leveraging our brand voices, contacting our elected officials, engaging with our customers, and letting them know that climate change is important to us. And we're going to do something about it. And that's part of what this Climate Alliance is also going to do, is have a national call-in day. And so those are things that cost nothing, but could have tremendous impact. But it's not enough, because you also need to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, which brings me to carbon neutrality. What does that mean? What is that? So just as a 30,000 foot overview for everyone, and hopefully I don't bore everyone to death with this, but there's three scopes when it comes to calculating your carbon footprint. There's scope 1, which is company owned. So think of company owned vehicles or buildings. There's scope 2, which is essentially your purchased electricity. And then scope 3, which is essentially your supply chain. And so what we're trying to accomplish is there's several steps. One is calculating your carbon footprint, because you have to have a baseline. 2, executing strategies that will, through energy efficiency or renewable energy, that will actually reduce your carbon footprint. And then 3, because it's the next best option, is to offset the rest or purchase renewable energy certificates. And to date, those are the best options available. It's all you can do. So I know that Dave has recently announced, if I'm allowed to say this out loud, but that Emerald Water Anglers is carbon neutral. And so I thought that, yeah, right? Woo! So I thought I would kick this off and ask Dave a little bit more about that process and what that was like, and if you could just shed some light on that for everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you for pointing that out. And Rick, you do actually bear some of the blame for that decision that I made. I think that what I really want to try to do is, for our customers, for the people that we spend our time with, and for all the other reasons that I said, I just feel like our industry spends a lot of money trying to put patches on things that we've made mistakes on and continue to make mistakes on. And there's some places we see Band-Aids, halt bleeding for a while and sort of offset the inevitable for a little bit longer. But nobody's providing all the people in our industry that very easy decision to do all the things that you said: buy, purchase, live a life that's just more carbon aware. And there's currently obviously no way for somebody to totally do it without the offset protocols that are available.
Yep.
So that is the option, and it's the easiest frickin' thing to do. I'd been talking about it for probably 3 or 4 years, and a friend that works at Amazon that Rick, came in one day and was like, "Why haven't you done this? You should do this." And so about 6 Sundays in a row, he came in for like 3 or 4 hours, and figured out exactly all of those metrics for our business, and handed me a sheet of paper, and he's like, "Here's what your footprint is, and here's what it'll take to offset it. Go choose your offsets and try to do it somewhere that's, either local or someplace that you patron frequently, so that it looks like the offset you're doing is more in the place where you're putting the carbon into the air and into the atmosphere." And it's really simple, and nobody's talking about this. Every business my size should be able to do it super easy.
Right.
And as soon as more businesses our size, my size, start to do this and start to see the ease by which you can have that impact through your business, now our voice becomes even stronger to our suppliers, and help those suppliers be a stronger voice to their suppliers and manufacturers. It's a reverse chain effect, right? We're going down the pyramid or up it, whichever way you want to look at that. But I'm excited to do it because I can't believe nobody else in this industry has done it yet.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Well, first and foremost, kudos to you, Dave. That's amazing. And one of the things that I'll point out is the thing that can get tricky or complex, particularly if you're a manufacturer or brand, is when you start digging into your supply chain.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
But that being said, think of it like this. So you talk about that ripple effect, and think about if everybody was doing this, you wouldn't have to even track your supply chain because everyone would be doing their scope 1 and their scope 2 emissions. They're company owned and they're purchased electricity. So this could be the catalyst to start those, particularly if people have shared suppliers, to really influence supply chains and actually make this easier for everyone. So with that being said, and we're talking about things being how easy this can be in terms of offsets and things of that nature, I want to talk to Kyle because I worked with Kyle some and am in the process of completing his full carbon footprint. But I thought I'd just and we can talk about this. What we did was we used for them that there is a carbon footprint calculator that Protect Our Winters has that's free, that's particularly for guides and adventurers. And so when I met with Kyle, we went through and we were able to. Well, Kyle, I'll shut up and I'll let you talk about it. I get all fired up, and now I've got a couple beers in me. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I think I'm a great example because as an independent guide, and again, I mean, to echo what Dave said, I was kind of blown away that I was the first independent guide that, at least as far as we know about within this group to be working to go carbon neutral. Because for a guide, it's very easy. I mean, it took no time at all. The footprint it's relatively straightforward. I'm not a shop that has to account for a lot of different suppliers and very complicated supply chains and things like that. So, I've got my boat, I've got the fuel that I burn, I've got the distances that I travel. I chose to offset, even some of my, my personal trips that I do throughout the year. I guided for another company this past winter abroad. I decided to offset that footprint as well, even though I'm, taking a salary from another company. So I kind of looked at it for 2019, just my whole collective footprint. And it was, I mean, first off, the exercise is just kind of eye-opening. You're going through it and you're understanding exactly where all your touch points are everywhere that I'm, everywhere that my footprint is affecting the planet. So for that alone, that just to draw your attention to it is just such a wonderful exercise as a business. And second, I was just so blown away by how simple it was to pull it together. And Rick made the process easy. It's understandable. And I was able to pick a project that is offsetting my footprint that's, maybe 75 miles from here. And I actually have a client that I'll be able to get my credits from in the future, probably next year in Maine. He helped get the Maine Woods and Water. Well, Dave knows him, Lucas St. Clair. So that's pretty cool. He helped put together the Maine Woods and Water Monument, and they're going to be, getting credits together to basically manage that big chunk of forest. And so I'll be able to have that kind of tie into my story, being a Maine guide, have a big, beautiful forest that's being protected for all of time. to help sequester the carbon that I'm emitting. So, I mean, it was just, it kind of seemed, too good to be true. It's just going through the whole process, and I'm just psyched. And Dave connected me with Rick, and super thankful for that. So thanks again, Dave.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle. So is Lucas offering offsets on the property up there next year?
Yeah, he's working on it. I had him on the boat a couple weeks ago, and we were chatting about that. I'm not exactly sure what the timeline is, but it sounds like next year I'd be able to access those credits. So
sweet.
Yeah.
Well, next time you see him, tell him I'm interested in maybe doing that for next year's offsets myself.
I will, for sure. I think Sunday I'm fishing again with him, so I'll definitely mention it.
Really?
Yeah.
He's not working very hard.
Hey, look, you don't
Typical.
have to, you don't have to when the trees are doing the sequestering for you.
Yeah, I know. That's typical of Lucas though.
All right. So, Tom, let's talk about Tailwater Lodge. And I also want to talk about, because I know you have some other properties, like the geothermal stuff is incredible. Like that is mind blowing. I had Tom as a guest for the Sustainable Angler back when it was just a Q&A. And anyway, we talked about that, so I'll let you elaborate on that. But what we'll be doing with Tailwater Lodge is just helping them in any way that I can to get their carbon footprint, which I think y'all already are involved because you're a Hilton property, and collecting some of that data. But we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive. But anyway, again, I'll shut up. Y'all. I am so fired up right now. This is ridiculous. So Tom, just go.
All right. So our lodge, being so we're a larger hospitality company. We represent hotels and restaurants and student housing and things throughout upstate New York. Our biggest piece in our sustainability move is we do all elective reuse projects. So 90% of what we do is out of unutilized buildings, things that have gone to waste throughout upstate New York, which this is a Rust Belt area. There was a ton built at the turn of the century that is kind of just gone into either abandonment, decay, that eyesore at the end of the street. So that's kind of been our focus kind of to begin with. So the company was started by my family, so they did this even before sustainability was a thing. They kind of saw it as a movement to, pretty much pick out properties around university areas throughout upstate. So we just got lucky that we had a bunch of property to work with. Tailwater itself, I was actually going steelhead fishing on the Salmon River, and the Altmar Elementary School was, and I went back to my folks and said, hey, I think we should buy this elementary school and turn it into a hotel. I was pretty much kidding. And they're like, let's go take a look at it. And the rest is history. So we got lucky that we actually called the broker and we're like, hey, we'd like to buy the school. They called us back and said, oh, sorry, it's sold. And then they called us back again and said, oh, no, that was the other school. So there was 2 elementary schools, and we're lucky enough to get the one on the river. But yeah, so that's kind of where the beginning of Tailwater and the most of our projects start is in an abandoned building or an underutilized building. Hotel Skylar, which is what I was talking about earlier, that's a LEED Platinum certified building on Syracuse University campus. So we have, that one was an adaptive reuse of a 1920s Jewish temple. So that one was another really cool project. And that one is completely powered by geothermal. So, and hotels and lodges in themselves are energy sucks because, they're operating 365 days a year. We always have to keep some heat in the building. We always have to keep some sort of light on. There's usually somebody walking around, but not always at full occupancy. So we do the best we can to mitigate our energy uses where possible. We try to do it as much as we can. We want to build as green as possible. Tailwater is a little different. We didn't get to do as much as we wanted because we're on well water there. We have a septic system there. There's not even any utilities, so we're bringing in propane at this point to heat the building. So we're doing what we can at that property to kind of mitigate what, because we created a use there as well. So it's it's an interesting problem to have. So we work closely with New York State DEC. We've done a ton of river restoration work. We try to work with much of, local products, local farmers. That's really where we're putting our stretch in right now to kind of keep with our sustainable aspects of the lodge. So
Yeah.
I can keep going, but I'll stop there for now.
Well, Tom brings up a couple of good points. First and foremost, just so in case anyone was wondering, there is essentially, since the beginning of we were Homo sapiens, humans have an impact, like we make an impact, right? And a lot of that negatively affects the environment. So, you can't really say there's really such a thing as a completely sustainable product. But I think the takeaway there, and to Tom's point, is you always do the best that you can. And what we'll start to do is then say, well, and then the next best option then is to offset the rest, right? So that you can say that, all right, yeah, well, we did everything that we could. And I know Dave's shop has a green building certification too. And those are the things that it's important to still do those things to reduce your footprint to a certain point. And, there's a lot of shop owners who, they probably lease the building. So it might not make sense to consider renewable energy because they don't own the building. So it's just like, okay, well, what can I do? And so you do the best that what you can, and you start there. But another point that I just want to cover really quick that Tom mentioned with the adaptive reuse is, so anything like this hat that I'm wearing, this shirt, whatever, this all has embodied energy and water, and it took resources to make this. And the same thing that goes into building materials. And so what Tom is, just to elaborate, what Tom's talking about with adaptive reuse is that you are actually making better use of something because that embodied energy and water that it took to actually frame that building and make that building is not going to waste. You're reusing it, so it's a more sustainable option. It's like using recycled materials in a product. So that leads me to Rep Your Water, Corinne Garrison, who I know I work with directly, and they've been a client of mine for a few years. But I know that and again, I'll be quiet. I'll let you tell your story. But I'll just say that I know that they've been working hard to do things within their office to reduce their energy use. They're also incorporating recycled materials into their products, and also some organic cottons and things of that nature. So take it away, guys. What are y'all working on that you feel from a sustainable business side of things is helping to benefit your company and the environment?
Well, thanks, Rick. Yeah, I mean, we have tackled some of the low-hanging fruit, I would say, at this point. I mean, we have worked really hard to divert waste from landfill, so we've been on a really nice track there. We lease our warehouse and office space, so we are sort of limited in the amount of big infrastructure changes we can make, but we have made a number of improvements to our warehouses with our landlord and just us. We're a certified green business with our local municipality, which is kind of cool now. And we do offset our warehouse carbon emissions.
That's your, phase 2?
Phase 2.
The scope 2. Scope 2.
Scope 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're in the unenviable position.
Sustainability nerd.
Right.
Yeah.
we're in the unenviable position now of really needing to chase down our supply chain, which is a whole different challenge. But you touched on sustainable materials. That is something that we're really trying to incorporate. We have had in our model since day one to support our conservation partners that work on conservation projects throughout the country, and push money to them in the work that they do. But we're really trying to move beyond that, still expand that program, but move beyond that and work on our own sustainability, and then really telling that sustainability story through our products, whether that's recycled polyester, organic cotton.
We're not upcycling buildings, but we have upcycled some like our sweatshirts are made of upcycled cotton, so you can imagine how much scrap material there is in any textile place. And so all of our sweatshirts, actually what I love about them is you can tell that they're this upcycled, recycled content because they dye all of that mixed textile. And then if you look really closely, you can see in the fibers, like there's like a fluorescent pink fiber in there. There's like a white fiber that didn't quite get dyed, but from afar it's black, it's kind of cool. So it has that feel of having a second life. We're not perfect yet, but one of the things that I have loved so much with working with you and even hearing some of these other stories is from the beginning when we started talking to you about trying to become more sustainable and moving beyond that donation to conservation partners is you can start somewhere. Everybody can do something. And so what did we start with? We were like, okay, well, let's be sure we have low flow on our sinks. Let's be sure that we have low flow.
Let's look at our lighting.
Let's look at our lighting. Easy. Let's buy offsets for the electricity that we're using in our warehouses and offices. So that kind of stuff, it's so tangible. And then you can go, well, that was easy. Now let's tackle the harder stuff, which is what we're at now.
And to Kyle's point, I think it's really valuable in terms of how it changes your frame of thinking when you start to think about all the different touch points, as he said. And from our perspective, not as a guide, but as a brand, the touch point of like, hey, what is the greenhouse gas emission for this shipment that we're receiving from this place, right? And really to just start to kind of reframe how you think about those things. And that starts to shape our decisions and push what we do with certain factories and how we've shaped those relationships. And I think that's valuable as we start to, push towards scope 3.
And like Dave was saying, whichever way we're going up or down on the pyramid, one of the things that is a necessary evil of clothing right now is the poly bag. Now, the plastic bag that everything comes in. And for a very long time, we were working with our main hat factory of like, well, can we send you poly bags that are made from recycled content? Because once you pull that petroleum out and make a bag out of it, there it is. It's there forever. So there's a ton of people making recycled polyester bags and, or you know what I mean, plastic bags. And, and so we were working with our factory and it wasn't worth the greenhouse gas to send them bags. You got to pick your battles, but they had access to bags. And now that factory has changed to 100% recycled poly bags on their side. And we're not their only customer. So our push, I like to think, changed things for a lot of other companies.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I think that we can accomplish as an alliance, is to have these ripple effects of positive change and all supporting each other along the way, which I think is really, really powerful. But I'm also going to take a second to brag on Reptor Water. They're not just diverting waste from the landfill. They divert 97% of their waste from the landfill, which in sustainable business terms, anything over 90%, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but there's always a certain amount of waste that is going to go to the landfill. But anything over 90% is considered zero waste to landfill. So that they have accomplished that 2 years ago and continue to amaze me. They were at 95%, and I was like, these guys are amazing. Like, that's incredible, 95%. Then last year we're tracking it, they're 97%. I'm like, y'all are talk about being a sustainability nerd. Y'all are taking the cake. You're stealing the cake from me. But
it was very contagious. I mean, we're in Boulder County. Our house is in Boulder County, so a bunch of hippies and yuppies and whatnot. But there is this really cool facility down the street, 10 miles away from us, that's called the Center for Hard Recycled Materials. So we can take almost anything there from our house too. So this isn't just stuff we're doing at the office.
And it's fun to grill them and be like, okay, wait a minute. What are you doing with it?
Yeah.
Where is it? I want to know where this is going. Tell me about
that hard styrofoam,
it. Yeah,
that
like, what is
the hard
the deal?
styrofoam, they crush it up and press it back together.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So we've all sort of kind of told some sustainability stories, and some of this, what I think probably looking at this, you're looking at it from a guide like Kyle is going to have a smaller footprint, right, than a brand, say. So it's easier for some people, or I won't, it's easier for a guide to say, yeah, well, I can go carbon neutral. Here's what I'm doing. Boom, 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 boom. That's different, than Dave's the next rung up, and then a Lodge is the next rung up, because then you're talking about everything from soaps and shampoo and everything else that goes into a Lodge, and then sort of at the top of that is a brand who has a potentially a really complex supply chain. So I think that
and we recycle too. So just so you know, we participate in soap recycling programs. Glad you touched on that.
Yeah, I love that, Tom. But I think that the takeaway, at least for me, is that everybody can do something, and they can do something today, and that's what we're I think collectively all in agreement on, is what are things that we can do that cost nothing that could have an impact. Well, that's contacting your elected officials. That's writing an op-ed. That's letting your customers and your clients know that, hey, we're not perfect, but we care, and we're doing what we can to solve the climate crisis, and here's what we're doing. So I think that that's a really important message, and always just start with what you can control and get things kicked off on the right foot, and you can address things and challenges as they come along, and you figure these things out. But I think that that's a really important takeaway, in terms of like, oh, well, I'm a brand, maybe I can't go carbon neutral tomorrow. That's not the point. The point is, do the things that you can now to make an impact, and you'll figure it out along the way. You'll get that. And that's why we set the goal for carbon neutral by 2030, so that some of these bigger companies and brands have an opportunity to fully not only reduce their energy demand and carbon footprint first, and then offset the rest. And I know that Dave's done that, and I know that Tom has been calculating their carbon footprint with Tailwater Lodge, and Kyle, you've done that. So, and Rep Water, obviously. So I think that's just something that anyone listening to this who's considering joining the Alliance should keep in mind, is that this is not about being perfect. It's not about pointing fingers. Hey, you did this, you didn't do that. This is about, I think sustainability is about being the best version of yourself, just like a person. And you just do the best that you can every day, and you're not perfect, but you got to start somewhere. So kudos to all of you. What else we want to talk about? Does anyone want to talk about fishing? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like we've talked about.
Can I talk about how frustrating my phone and car is?
It's all good. It's no worries. This is just all about hopefully getting some people inspired to get involved.
Before we get to some epic fishing stories, I want to know what Kyle's drinking over there.
What is happening?
Intrigued.
I know my lovely wife, Kitri, just handed me Maine Beer Company. It is lunch. Talk about good companies.
That's a good one.
Yeah, this is a real delight.
I know. I saw it come over. It was like the heavens were giving it to you.
You see me light up. I was
well, also speaking of good beer, I'll have to give Tom a plug. So when I went up to fish at Tailwater Lodge this past fall, like Tom just nonchalantly is just like, well, just didn't say anything, frankly, and was just like, okay, like just, yeah, come up, we'll fish, we'll sort of get this workshop thing figured out, we'll have fun. Okay, cool. Well, I go to dinner one night, and he's like, no, we're not eating in the restaurant area. He's like, just come back here. And so I go back there, and they've got a Patagonia Provisions paired meal with local beer and local cider, and it was like a 6-course meal. It was incredible. So
is that part of the normal program, Tom?
Every day we just no, it worked out. It worked out pretty well. That Patagonia Provisions was hanging out, and my buddy who owns a cidery brewery up the street wanted to be part of it. So yeah.
I mean, we love all those.
It was a good night.
Yeah, we're in.
Come
We're in.
visit. We'll throw another one.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got a tasting room too with a whole bunch of taps. So you come in, we'll drink some beer, eat some local food. Yeah.
I'm still trying to bring Corinne around on the mackerel, but we'll get there.
Hey, I just smoked some mackerel yesterday and it was delicious.
I'm a mackerel fan.
Well,
I love the Patagonia Provisions mackerel is.
No, I like the mackerel if you make it like you would make a tuna salad, because we won't touch tuna with a 10-foot pole because of sustainability, Rick.
Yeah, well, you got to be careful. You got to be careful what you're eating. No, hey, buy local, right? It's especially with seafood.
There's not a lot of tuna in Colorado.
We are a nightmare couple to go out to sushi with. Like, no.
We'll just take some rice and low sodium sake, please, or low sodium dip.
I mean, like lots of sake and.
Do you have a mackerel special?
Yeah. Well, it's like that Portlandia episode. I don't know if y'all watch that, but when they're like, sit down and ask about the chicken, and they're like, what was the chicken's name? And they're like, hang on, let's go to the farm.
Did he have friends?
Yeah.
Well, we're both born and raised in Boulder and then went to school in Portland, so you can put everything.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
You guys go to Reed or Lewis and Clark, or where'd you go in Portland?
Lewis and Clark, yeah, pioneers.
Yeah,
all
buddy.
the way.
Nice. You guys are kind of crunchy, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
We're crunchy for sure. Yeah, it's funny that we're both from Boulder and like 1 degree of separation, but met at Lewis and Clark in Portland.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's a good school. A friend of mine's dad was a law professor there.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that law school is very cool.
Good law school.
Yeah.
Right on the park.
Yeah.
All right, now we can talk about fishing, Rick.
All right. So let's go around and let's just talk about what is happening. Let's just talk about your last day on the water. Dave, tell me about your last day on the water out in Washington.
Let me get my calendar out so I can look and try to recall when that was. I mean, we were the only state in the country to fully close fishing during the beginning of COVID.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, fishing was 100% closed, whether you lived here or not. They closed everything. And early COVID, I could kind of see some fairly sizable hurdles and obstacles coming our way through small business, and everyone here, as in other places, I'm sure, was so petrified that we literally had customers that I think to this day probably still haven't left their house except to go to the grocery store. And so it was I really felt compelled to try to help people through our social understand that, man, you guys not spending any money, the PPP and stuff like that is not going to save all these small businesses. And in particular, restaurants, your service industry is going to absolutely disappear. And when you reemerge, it's going to be a reemergence into a ghost town. So you've got to figure out a way to reintegrate or integrate while sequestering yourself. And that was, so it was really weird to sit around and watch the few people that were kind of illegally trying to get out and fish in places that were nondescript and discreet and social distance and not get caught, and have a couple customers that had been cited for fishing illegally during that closure. The last time I was actually out on the water, I was actually teaching a rowing class about a week ago. No, that's not true. I was just down at my dad's on the North Umpqua steelhead fishing last week. So not in Washington, but down in Southern Oregon. We had a pretty big winter up here, but kind of circle this back into what we're talking about with that big winter, all of our snowpack already everywhere around here.
Yeah.
We're already seeing really high water temps, even in Puget Sound. It's for the average angler, it sneaks up on you. You don't, unless you're out there every day, you don't see those real subtle, the subtleties of change occurring when you water temp today, and then you look at what it was last year and you're like, and you think about seasonality. And then as you walk through this season, you're like, why is Puget Sound, that's connected to the ocean, already in the high 60s on the surface water temp, pushing almost 70 in places near main current channels? Man, that's going to be devastating for our cold water species out here. It's all the way up the chain. The resident trout are going to pay the piper. All the anadromous fish are going to just crap the bed. Albacore fishing off the coast. More and more Dorado are being caught within 10 miles of the Washington coast. It's, unless you're paying close attention, connecting all the dots, man, this climate change is sneaking up on us real fast. And because we all spend our lives associated with water, it's maybe it feels more perilous to us than the average person, but we got to figure out a way to communicate that.
Yeah. And I think too,
sorry, shitty fishing report.
No, but hey, look, that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? I mean, that's why we're having this conversation. That's why we all formed this climate alliance, and we're trying to prevent or save our fisheries. And I know Kyle mentioned this earlier, and I said we'd come back to it, and I kind of forgot. But when I talked about there was snook in Charleston, like people are catching them like regular because we didn't have a big enough freeze this winter. Usually there'll be a few that come up, but there wasn't a big enough freeze. And then I interviewed I forget who at the moment, but they said that Virginia is opening a white shrimp fishery, which they'd never had in the past, because the shrimp are going that far north, which means that it's so hot here in the Carolinas and Georgia, where we have wild Georgia shrimp and South Carolina shrimp that we grow up on and, absolutely love. Look at the pup. But they're everything is, they're following the temperature, and it's changing things at today's point at a pretty rapid pace.
When I was in Iceland a couple of years ago, our guide actually, on between our beat sessions, would go down to the lower Ranga to catch pink salmon.
Really?
Yeah. And Iceland's encouraging people to go club and harvest every pink salmon they can possibly get. Clearly not a species that belongs in Iceland. And at least when I was there, they were unclear whether those were a Russian originated species that was crossing over to there, or was a Pacific species that had crossed through a channel that was starting to open up in the Arctic. But either way, for people in the fishing world, that's a huge signal.
Right. Yeah. That's a red flag. Or Tom, are y'all seeing things in upstate New York with your salmon and steelhead and things, your cold water species?
Our cold water species that we target on our river are an alien species, so it's kind of hard to. How do I want to say this? We're regulating a fishery for non-native fish that shouldn't be there in the first place. So I don't know if you want to dive into my fishery along with the climate because there's it's a whole.
No, it's relevant, man.
There. But no, we're at Tailwater on the Salmon River, as the name says, and our river temps been getting worse and worse, and that we're also seeing crazy bank erosion on our river just because of the way that they pulse the river. So yeah, we need some work. Lake Ontario itself right now, this is a whole nother talk. We can maybe schedule it, Rick, but so we're trying to regulate the forage fish by stocking limits, because the forage base isn't keeping up with the current amount of fish stocked in Lake Ontario. And that's actually because of very cold winters. Lake Ontario has frozen over, I believe, 4 times in the last 5 years, which is a lot of the forage, which is creating both steelhead problems and problems with the king salmon. So now they're playing scientist and, reducing the amount of king salmon that are stocked into the Great Lakes, trying to create more of a steelhead fishery, which that comes with a lot of strife from the captains who feel that it's the king salmon that is the moneymaker. So there's a lot going on in upstate New York and throughout Lake Ontario right now. It's one huge science experiment. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love fishing for our fish. I love our river. I think our fish are real steelhead. Dave, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's very, very interesting what they're trying to pull off, because it really is a different science experiment every there. Those fish shouldn't be there, and now because of dollars, and it's pretty much only because of the money behind the fishery that they're there and that they're being managed. So yeah, we're Tailwater Lodge, we're all sorts out there, so lots to talk about.
But the good news is we're solving the climate crisis. Tailwater Lodge.
That's it. We're trying our best.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, our smallmouth fishery, which should be there, is fantastic this time of year. So, and we're crazy overlooked for that. But it's gar and smallmouth is what's supposed to be in the river this time of year, and it's a good time to be around upstate New York. So yeah.
Nice.
Well, ironically, Tom, we just finished our Bass Week in Washington, of which that is not at all a native species up here.
There you go.
Well, there'll be a snook tournament in Charleston next year, probably. So,
we're looking for.
I'm kind of excited, Rick. I love snook.
Oh, I do too. But I usually go to the Everglades every year. And this year we didn't because of the COVID. But man, snook fishing in the Everglades is pretty tough to beat, especially sight fishing for them. That's pretty exciting bite.
Heck yeah.
Well, Kyle, so you're guiding, so you're on the water all the time. How has the striper fishing been?
It's been good. It's been good. I got some good recent memories. We've had some cool stuff. I always feel like I have to put it in context. We're at, not to be a downer, we're at a 27-year low with striped bass stocks, but we do have pockets of excellent fishing. Our flats have been holding up really well. So that's pretty consistent. That seems like it's one of the more consistent elements, which is nice because it's probably the most challenging. Shallow water bass and trying to fool them on a crab or a shrimp. And I had a guy out today who was like, "This is like freaking boat fishing, man." I mean, we had a really skinny water bite and just a very beautiful day over sand. And so we're fishing 8-10 inches to 25-inch stripers that are cruising around and tailing and doing cool stuff. So we had a pretty fun day today, and we've had some cool stuff going on. This is the time of year it starts to slow a little bit. So, we're starting to get into August where the fish are fat and happy, and they're in their full on resident New England mode of just, they're well fed, they're in their spots, they can be a little bit trickier. But we got some cool stuff going on still for sure.
Right on. Corinne Garrison, I know that I know Garrison went to Wyoming recently. Any report?
Well, I would say on a positive note, I mean, first of all, just, people are talking about how kind of things are changing. I mean, we do see in Colorado, I feel like more and more severe droughts, and southern Colorado right now is already in a really severe drought. Most of the state is in drought conditions. We see warmer temps. But on a positive note, to your point, my last day fishing was just one of those float days with a good buddy, and in an area where they've had really good water this year, and the nighttime temps are still like 40 degrees every night. So nice, cool nights and big, healthy fish. And we didn't see anybody else. We saw moose and prairie falcons and some big, healthy trout, and just had a glorious day on the water. So one of those days to remind us of what we're striving to pass on.
And while he was gone, I just went to like our closest local water, caught a bunch of, small fish because it's small water, but just dry dropper all day. Hard to beat that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you go up to the Big Thompson?
No, we're a little further south from the Big T. We're just we're in Boulder County, and so all the Boulder Creek watershed is closest.
That's cool.
The St. Vrain's not too far from us either. It's some of that
There you
small
go.
too.
All right. Well, I think that
on the note of sorry.
No.
I did fish today in Ertz, and we got like 30 fish on dry droppers all day. So it was first day I fished with a fish local in a while, so it felt good. Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, I don't have anything nearly as exciting, because I think I mentioned this. I can't remember if we were recording when we talked about this, but I had a redfish today that was a very good size, and we were low tide fishing, and his back was out of the water, and I cast up. I had like 3 good shots before he blew out, and he just didn't pay my fly any attention, and I'm just gonna have to live with that, y'all. That's just something I'm gonna have to live with. It was heartbreaking.
I posted this morning on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, y'all, I appreciate I sincerely appreciate and thank all of you for joining the Fly Fishing Climate Alliance. Without y'all, we wouldn't have gotten this thing off the ground. I hope we continue to gain more momentum, and more guides and shops and lodges and brands get on board. But thank you to all the brands who've become a part of this alliance. And I think that we're going to achieve really powerful and impactful things together. And I'm excited about it. So I think
before you sign off, Rick, can I throw something out there really quick?
Of course.
I just want to tell all of you guys that, and not to sound, I don't want to sound like I'm just going to say it, so don't take it wrong, but I'm super proud of all of you guys for taking the leap that you have. I think this small group tells a full circle story of what's possible. Rick, I would highly encourage looking into some sort of a short video to be made about little snippets of each one of these stories, because as you've mentioned, we've touched on the full ring really of what our industry touches, and what that looks like at each one of those avenues as far as being carbon negative or carbon neutral.
Yep.
And Garrison and Corinne, I applaud you constantly for being in the position of a manufacturer, trying to make this happen. That's what is going to that's what's going to actually start to steer the ship in the right direction. All the guides in the world are going to, create a voice and a base by which to, support what you're doing. But it's really going to take someone like you, bold enough, strong enough, flexible enough, willing, and able to show larger companies as well as the ones of similar size, and with not only in our industry but others, fringe industries, that it can be done. It's going to take someone like you to do this.
We'll try it. We'll keep pushing, buddy. We appreciate you.
One thing at a time, for sure.
Well, no, and I mean, to echo Dave's sentiments, I mean, this is going to take everyone. This is all hands on deck, and I think that's probably the most powerful thing about this alliance is we're working to achieve a common goal. And if that means collaborating and sharing and doing everything that we can to achieve this, I think that there's like I said, a massive ripple effect that can happen. And so it takes all of us. And I mean, let's just kick some ass, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Do it.
Let's do it.
And Thomas, you too, man. The lodge world has a big footprint in this industry, and your ability to show them how to do it and the ease by which it can be done, I think is, again, it's going to provide more substance, more grit, more help pave the way for the larger companies that are going to really start to put the pressure on the supply chain to turn the ship around and start redirecting how we do things. I'm super excited. I'm so excited to be with you guys. Yeah, nice work, everybody.
Yep.
You too, everybody.
And Rick, for your obvious foresight to jump out on that ever so flimsy limb to try to drive this nail into the industry. It's bold, dude.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for the kind words, but none of this happens without y'all. So we're gonna do this, and I hope that more people get on board, and it's just gonna happen. So I would say that the next step is, if we do this before 2030, we start challenging other industries. So surf industry, we're coming for you. Skiing industry, we're coming for you. We'll start beating some people up. And at the end of the day, maybe fly fishing can save the world.
Thanks for listening to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. Special thanks to Corinne and Garrison Doctor from Rep Your Water, Tom Fernandez from Tailwater Lodge, Dave McCoy from Emerald Water Anglers, and Kyle Schaefer from Soulfly Outfitters for joining me on the podcast today, and also for being Fly Fishing Climate Alliance members. If you'd like to join the Climate Alliance, visit emergerstrategies.com. And if you could, please give us a rating and review on iTunes if you like what you're hearing. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.